Good afternoon. This is Janet Larn.
And I'm Jacqueline Harrod.
And
together we are J.L. Harland. And this is our debut novel that we're going to talk to you about today.
The story, as we said, is called What Lies Between Them, and it's about a Welsh-Italian career academic called Ellen Fiorelli, who's just returned to Brynderwen University in Cardiff from a 3-month research trip in a remote study house in Finland. And the project was about the effects of well-being without technology. She believes the final step to her goal of professorship before she is 40 is soon to be achieved. But she is shocked to discover that in her absence there have been changes, and the new dean is none other than Michael Hardwick, her erstwhile lover, and her job could be in jeopardy. When her mother becomes ill, Ellen must try and balance life and work while facing the secrets of her past.
And we're going to read just a little bit from the first chapter where Ellen returns to the university, just setting the scene really. So, What Lies Between Them by J.L. Harland, Chapter 1, Ellen, mid-December. The university car park was deserted as Ellen Fiorelli pulled into her usual spot beside the library. It was good to be driving again after 3 months away. In late September, when she'd left Cardiff, it had been a hot day, an Indian summer mixed with autumn leaves, crimson, gold, amber and brown carpeting the earth. Today, there was a light covering of snow on the ground, crunching underfoot, still crisp and frozen. 7 a.m. and dark as a raven's wing. She shivered as she inhaled the icy air, her breath leaving ghost-like traces as she hurried to the entrance of the main building where Brynderwen University slumbered in the December stillness.
The night porter nodded his balding head to her as she passed. A Christmas tree twinkled behind him, its multicoloured lights a welcome reminder of the festive season. She stepped around the young girl, head down, with purple-tipped hair bobbing as she mopped the floor in the corridor. The familiar smell of the lemon-scented disinfectant filled the air, making her feel as though she'd never been away. A comforting feeling. Her high-heeled boots clicked on the laminate floor and echoed in the near-empty building. As Ellen climbed the stairs, she could hear her breathing in the silence.
When she arrived on the top floor, Ellen found her office airless and musty, abandoned as though the room hadn't been used for quite a while. She opened a window and a blast of fresh, cold air whipped around, rustling a pile of papers that encroached on her half of the space, discarded by a visiting professor. As she took a set of research notebooks out of her bag and placed them on the desk in a neat pile, a cloud of dust puffed towards her, making her sneeze. She shrugged off her coat, flopped down at her desk chair and paused, staring at the blank computer screen. Once logged on, she knew the flood of emails would delay her from delving into the research notes.
A knock on the door startled her, as Sue Deacon's smiling face peeped round. "Ellen, great to have you back from the wilds of Finland." Sue's blue eyes were full of warmth as she greeted her friend.
One of the things that we looked at in this story was the mother-daughter relationship, because Ellen and her mother have quite a fraught relationship, don't they? And we thought that this was something that needed to be explored. So the next little bit that we're going to read is the first time that Ellen sees her mother again after they come back together after Ellen returns from Finland, and she's had a little conversation with her mother. Her mother's been complaining about being ill, hasn't she? And Ellen thinks, frequently. And Ellen thinks that this is just another one of her emotional blackmail
particularly
things.
Since she's been away for 3 months.
Yeah, so she doesn't really take an awful lot of note about it, but she nags her mother about going to the doctor, and her mother says, "Yes, I have been to the doctor."
Yes.
But and this is the sort of the conversation that carries on from there.
Well, I'm glad you've seen somewhat about it, Mum. Perhaps you're just a little bit run down. Have you been eating properly? You look as though you've lost a bit of weight.
Of course I've been eating. Stop bossing me, Ellen. What do you care? If you were really concerned about me, you wouldn't have gone gallivanting to the wilds of Sweden for months.
Finland.
Pardon?
I've been in Finland, working, research, not gallivanting. Though perhaps she should cross her fingers. In many ways, the research trip had felt like a holiday. Time to indulge herself by reading, walking and thinking without interruption. Now, after listening to her mother's tirade, she was almost sure the mysterious malady was another case of self-pity and the usual demand for attention. Mum was so different from Aunt Anne. She'd be dying to hear about her niece's adventures, about the fishing and the story of the prudish Wolfgang in the sauna.
To avoid any more nagging, Ellen went to the kitchen and buttered scones while she waited for the kettle to boil. For the next hour or so, they chatted amicably enough, and Catherine seemed to be a little brighter. At 7 o'clock, Ellen heated the soup and warmed some rolls.
Shall we eat in the breakfast room, Mum? It seems a little silly to eat in the dining room when it's just the two of us.
Catherine nodded her consent and got to her feet to follow Ellen. She wobbled a bit when she stood up, then steadied herself. Ellen watched, concerned. Mum was never as stiff and doddery as this.
Perhaps you should go to the doctor again if that dizziness returns. It could be an ear infection.
Mum gave Ellen one of her stares. Ellen, you may be well qualified, however, you're not a medical doctor, so please don't try to diagnose anything. I'd be better after a good night's sleep. It's helped to have some company this afternoon.
More guilt came over Ellen in waves. It would be so easy to suggest staying the night. Mum would like that. But she wanted to get back into her own bed and sort out her unpacked suitcases. The silence between them was broken only by the sounds of spoons on crockery.
I suppose you go in now. You've done your duty. Off you go.
Mum, don't be like that. I'd have come to see you tonight in any case. I left early, as I said. Sent my apologies for a meeting this afternoon and came here to see you. I was worried.
That job means more to you than I do. You don't have to spend every waking hour working, abandoning me for a desk. Who cares what you do, really? You're far too independent, Ellen. You've always had that hard streak in you. Your father couldn't see it, but I do.
Ellen braced herself, exhaustion claiming her. She could feel tears on their way. Papa always told her how proud he was of her, and she still missed him so much. She'd had enough. I don't see anything wrong with wanting to be independent.
You take it too far. You should have got married and had children. I wanted grandchildren, but you were too busy pursuing your important career to take time to find a husband. We bought this big house in the hope that when you got married, you'd bring the children here to stay on the holidays. But no, you wanted the job more than anything. No grandchildren to keep me company at my old age.
Ellen closed her eyes and counted to 10. She could feel her body tense and her heart thumped in her chest. Why aren't you proud of me, Mum? My research on well-being is important. It can make a contribution to people's lives. I'm on track to become a professor before I reach 40. I have a career, financial independence, and I've achieved more than a lot of women of my age. Why can't you see that? And for the last time, I've accepted I won't have children. Why in heaven's name can't you?
Because I don't understand you. I just don't understand what you want out of life. You drive yourself so hard. Why?
Because that's the way I am. Papa would be proud. You should be. Ellen stood up and slung her bag over her shoulder. I'm going now. I don't need this. I'm tired too, and have a few busy days ahead of me before going away for Christmas.
That's right. Walk away from it all. I'm glad I'm going to my sister for Christmas. Anne will listen. She'll understand.
Ellen just raised an eyebrow. Aunt Anne might listen, but she very often disagreed with her older sister. Chalk and cheese.
In any case, I don't want to spend Christmas with a selfish daughter who doesn't have time for her mother and doesn't appreciate anyone else's point of view.
Ellen looked over at her mother, their eyes meeting for a brief moment. I'll ring you when I get in. As she walked out, Ellen resisted the temptation to slam the door, pulling it behind her with a click. Instead, she drove too fast and fumed the whole way back to Cardiff Bay. She was still in a foul mood when she reached her flat and gave a curt nod to the security man instead of her usual friendly smile. If only Mum knew.
Then perhaps she'd understand. Okay, Jan, we've got some questions from the students, and the first one is, how would you describe your writing process? So we talk about how we write together, because co-authoring is a different process.
It is.
You know, I dare say when you write solo, it's entirely different than when we write together.
Well, not entirely different, because obviously writing, you know, in that sense, one's drawing on the imagination and so on. But probably there's a difference when you co-write, because you're aware of the audience, first and foremost being your co-writer.
Yes.
So that's definitely, you know, whereas in a way when you're writing solo, there's an audience, but it's not that immediate audience. It's probably sort of more, a bit more, you know.
And you're more inclined to follow the plan, I suppose, whenever you're working with a co-author.
Well, that's not true, though, is it? That's not true for us, is it? I mean, but I think what one of the sort of our writing process when we write together is to plan together.
Yes.
Which gives us a skeleton.
Yeah.
And then after that we go off piste quite happily, don't we?
Well, yeah, that's it.
We do share.
We do have a starting point, and I suppose our starting point is really our characters.
Very much characters.
Now, I couldn't find the character sketches we did of Ellen, because if you remember, whenever we started, we had big sheets of paper.
We did,
and we did that with the third year students, didn't we? We gave them a photograph, which we do use sometimes. But I have got with me the book that we used whenever we were planning the sequel.
Oh, the sequel, yes.
The sequel.
Yes.
So
yes, you can. Yes, sure.
So this is the sort of thing we do. I hope you can see that.
And we each do it. We each have a parallel have a notebook that we discuss together, and then we do our own. What's the same text?
It's the same text, but I can't read John's writing.
No,
so.
I know. No, and also in a way, it's something that when we go away to write, we've got that.
Yes, so we've got the foundation, and we have long conversations about the characters, don't we?
Absolutely.
We spend weeks actually doing the background to the characters and talking about them and what would they do in this situation, what would they do in that situation. Yeah. So the characters are very, very central to that writing process.
Absolutely. So that's very much a key part of our writing process. There's a lot more we could say, because in a way when you're writing as a co-author, there's a lot more sort of intricacies in some ways, but I think at the moment some of that will come out as we carry on to the next question.
Right,
which is, and I'll ask you, Jacqui, how do you edit your work?
Right, well, again, it's the process of sending things back and forward. We start with that sort of vague plan, don't we? And when I say vague plan, it really is.
It is.
We usually plot 4 chapters together, and then we go off and we take separate sections. Yeah. Now with this novel, with what lies between them, we did it very much, you do one chapter, I do the next one, and we wait to see what happens, which was just as well, because sometimes
unexpected.
What would end up in the plan didn't end up.
No, but at that point we weren't really editing in any sort of fine-grained way. What we were doing was responding. It was like a sort of a reading.
Yes. So that is the sort of first process, wasn't it? Because you had to read what your partner had written before you could read any more.
Because it was new text.
And I suppose there was a sort of editing going on in your head as you're reading, because you know, I'm sure you found it, but you know, whenever I've gone off piste,
you think, well, that wasn't in
where
the
did
plan.
that come from?
That wasn't in the plan. But it's interesting, and sometimes we run with it, and sometimes we don't. You know, so we sort of sort of thing.
But then with the actual edit itself, we took it sort of 2 chapters at a time?
2 chapters at a time, which is a way of blending, because we do a lot of blending.
The blending of the voice.
One chapter would have been written by one of us and the other chapter would have been written by the other person, so therefore this first edit was beginning to blend the 2 voices.
It wasn't difficult to blend the voice, was it?
No, but I mean,
which
it
surprised
was a
us.
sort of, we didn't do it deliberately to do that particularly, but it sort of started the edit of the 2 voices. Though, as you say, really it wasn't a major
a
blending
major shift
to be done.
Yeah.
And we didn't know that beforehand.
No. It was very fortunate,
yes,
wasn't it, really?
It could have been, we might have each of us thought, goodness me, how are we going to bring these together? But in fact, that wasn't the case.
And then after that, it was 4 chapters at a time.
Yes.
So we went over, I don't know how many edits.
A lot of edits.
We must have gone through 49, 50 edits before it actually went out.
Yeah, I've lost track really. And of course, that's another aspect of co-writing, which might be interesting to the students, is the aspect that, you're likely to edit more at the early stages when you're co-writing, because in a way you're sort of checking back with each other to see if you're happy with the edit before you go on, in a sense. So,
and we didn't use track changes.
We didn't.
We used a colour coding system, so anything that we thought needed to go out, we highlighted in red. New stuff we put in blue.
We did.
And then we had green for something.
I know, thank goodness we got rid of that now, but because these things do evolve as you work together. But at that early stage, we did have green. I think that's definitely a 3-colour coding system.
Yes.
So,
but with the edit, whenever it actually was edited by our editor for the publisher, that was a different system.
That was different. That was track changes.
That was track changes,
which is actually, I think, on reflection, more complex if you're co-authors.
Oh, definitely.
It adds an extra layer because you're working with the editor and then you're working with 2 authors. And though I think the versions and just the sheer mess of the track change is visually quite difficult to sort of get the meaning going, isn't it?
Yes, it definitely was.
So I'm not sure that's something we'd want to do, to use track changes again. Obviously, as we carry on, we are changing and adapting and so on, but that would not, we started doing some editing on a new work, and we haven't been instantly drawn to track changes as an approach, have we?
No.
So we're going to probably carry on with the colour coding system.
This one, I think, is quite hard, because it said, what book or author has helped to inspire or influence your work?
I know.
That's really difficult.
It is. When I saw that, I sort of thought, well, there are so many authors, and I think in a way as well, given the fact we've been reading for a long time,
very long time.
There's a lot of authors over a long period of time. So in a way, sometimes there may have been one author when one was very young, perhaps, who was particularly influential, and then later on in life another author. So in periods of one's life, I think sometimes authors have a certain sort of call to you, don't they? But I would not be able to say, a book or an author which is at this point in my life the one that has affected my work.
No, I'd be the same, actually. I can remember the first book that I read, which really stuck in my head. I can remember studying for my first degree and the work that I studied then. But since then, as you say, it's a mishmash.
It is really,
and
it is.
You can read
Lots
something and it will stay with you for a while, and then you read something else, and it's just...
It blends.
It's a movement, isn't it? So that.
But they are. One would undoubtedly recognise those influences. You know what I mean? So there's undoubtedly lots and lots of influences that have affected, both of us, our work.
And I think there's a subconscious influence, isn't there? Everything you read will leave something there, some little subconscious memory, even if it doesn't come out in a way that is sort of you can see, but there will be something going on,
a stylistic
inside your head.
thing, or something about a character, or
or just admiration
or admiration, indeed, and sometimes place as well. So sometimes the setting can be absolutely fascinating, and you really enjoy perhaps reading several books by somebody because of the setting.
Yes.
So there's,
takes you somewhere
yeah,
else.
so there's lots of, but definitely there's no doubt that authors have inspired and influenced both our work and our
yes.
joint work. I know two ways about it. So what are you currently reading? That's also a very difficult question, isn't it? I mean, the famous to be read pile, is sort of like this, isn't it, type of thing, sort of, or beyond.
Yeah,
so
about 20 books last time I counted, and not on the Kindle.
I know. So I think if you're a reader, which we both are, then actually you tend to have a lot more books than you're actually reading at any one time, or actually even potentially even able to read, because you want to read lots of really fascinating, interesting things.
Yeah.
So
well, actually,
I can talk. We can both talk about what we actually perhaps are reading currently. But
yes, this is what I'm reading currently downstairs, because I have a book downstairs and I have a book upstairs.
Right.
I don't know whether it's laziness or whether it's something else.
Just the system.
But this is a non-fiction, The Science of Storytelling, and as you know, I'm fascinated by storytelling.
Yes.
And it's gripping.
Yeah,
it's a non-fiction book, but it's gripping.
Yes.
And I sat and just read and read, whereas normally with non-fiction you tend to dip in and you dip out, don't you?
Yeah, indeed.
And upstairs I've got on the Kindle. Now, I prefer a book, I must admit. I find the Kindle, I'm more critical reading on Kindle. But I've just started reading a Louise Penny called A Great Reckoning, and it's a Chief Inspector Gamache mystery.
Right.
Now, this is way down in the series, and this is an author that had been recommended to me a few months ago, and I hadn't read any of her stuff.
And
I'm really enjoying it. It's set in Canada. You know what you were saying about the setting. The setting, and it's this particular book is set in Ottawa, and I've been there. So and well, 3 times.
Yes. Well, actually, talking about specifics, one of the things that two things I'm reading at the moment have different settings, but they're both about missing people, but in very different ways. So that's been quite interesting.
So what are you reading?
Well, I'm reading the Will Dean from the book event that we went to, which is called Black River, and that's about a missing friend. It's set in Sweden, in the forest in Sweden.
Where he lives.
And the other book I'm reading, in inverted commas, because it's an audio book, is by Leanne Moriarty, called Where the Apples Fall. I think that's right. I might have got the title, Where the Apples Fall. And that's also about a missing person, about the mother in the family. But they're treated so it's quite fascinating, because it's the whole issue of a missing person, but in different countries and in different sort of emotional vibes about them, actually. But it's been quite interesting to have the same theme, in a way. Unexpectedly, I didn't necessarily think.
And you quite like audiobooks.
I love audiobooks,
I haven't got the patience.
And podcasts. I love podcasts as well. I'm very, all that. So I think it's partly because I'm quite an audio person. Because with languages and learning languages, I'm quite into sound. As much, if not more, than visual. But so I love audiobooks. I'd be lost without them, actually. They're a really key part of my reading. So,
Gosh,
yes, no, they really are.
I haven't got the patience. I mean, it's like when you used to read around in school, and you'd have to wait for somebody to read, and I would be pages on.
Well, you can do the speed, of course. You can turn the speed up.
Oh, right.
Yeah, you can turn the speed on it. So, I mean, then of course the reading does get a bit bigger. But if you really wanted to go fast, I mean, I tend to do it more than the reading speed, actually. I tend to do one and a bit, or just to sort of, for that reason, really, sometimes. Yeah. Anyway,
So what have we got?
So what advice do you have for current creative writing students?
The last question.
The last question,
Well, read.
Yes, I think read and
Constantly.
write.
Yeah.
I think both those, and they're basic sounding things, but they are the building blocks of writing, aren't they? If you're not reading and if you're not writing, then your writing will not improve, because you're feeding your writing.
One thing
and
balances
then the other one
the other,
improves the skills. So undoubtedly. And probably in reading, one would say reading aloud as well. You know, of one's
of
other
your work
people's work
and your own work, because you get the rhythm,
Yes,
of the words. Then this is where you see, you know, my passion for oral storytelling comes, because with the oral stories, you're making a connection with the audience.
Similarly with poetry, you see.
Yes.
When you read,
when
I
you
love
read aloud.
poetry being read aloud, because I think again, it's the connection, it's the sound, isn't it? And it's the sharing of meaning in a live sort of setting rather than on the print form. So.
And the other thing I would say is, don't expect an overnight success.
God, yes. Oh, we can speak, can't we? Oh dear. And that's probably a note on which to wish the students all the very best
for
writing,
your future careers in writing, and enjoy it.
And show that you can enjoy it at any stage of life. Really.
Yes, and it is a great joy, and I think it's a great gift. Actually,
it is. It's wonderful to be able to. Absolutely.
And co-writing, if you haven't tried it,
give it a whirl.
Give it a whirl.
You might end up killing each other, but on the other hand, it might work.
I haven't done that yet.
On the other hand, it might work perfectly well, and you might be delighted.
Yes,
which is what we've experienced. It's worked really, really well.